Okay, so this is being recorded and people on YouTube live stream are hopefully watching as well. I've gone through the entire festival with doing introductions, but forgetting to say who I was. So this time I'm going to remember. I'm Donna Kane, and I'm the Executive Director of the Peace Liard Regional Arts Council. And I'd like to begin by expressing our gratitude to Treaty 8, on whose territory we reside and work. I also would like to thank the sponsors to this year's Wild Words North, BC Arts Council, Canada Council for the Arts, Peace River Regional District, the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, the Province of BC, the Dawson Creek Art Gallery, and the Northern Lights College Foundation. People will, who have been on these webinars before will know there's a Q&A button that you can click on if you have questions at the end of the reading, and there's also the chat, which you guys can use to, just visit with each other or post comments on how you like the work, which I know you're going to love. I was listening to the drafts. It was remarkable in such a short workshop how those poems just came to be. So what I'm going to do is introduce Erin, and then Erin's going to take it away. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Erin Moure. She's one of Canada's most esteemed and respected translators and poets. And we were so fortunate last year to have her come up and be a feature writer at Wild Words North. And we had her back this year by popular demand. She was so popular and so loved, we just had to have her back. So without further ado, welcome, Erin.
Thanks very much, Donna. It's really great to even be virtually at Wild Words North and able to cross the country even in this kind of virtual way. I'm in Montreal in unceded Mohawk territory, and I almost feel like I'm up in the North Piece. And thank you very much, Donna, and to everybody who behind the scenes assists you in trying to make sure these things work. We're very lucky. I'm going to read today from this book by The Uplands, a book of the chorale by the Galician poet Ushio Novaneira. Which I translated, just to introduce you to this work. I wanted to say a few words before I read. And after I read, the other people that you can see on screen who were part of the workshop on Friday and worked, they're so amazing. They worked so fast and so well trying to translate the land where they are variously, from Hamilton to Toronto to Fort St. John to Victoria, to translate land into words, to translate land into language, thinking about what Novaneira did. In any case, I learned a lot translating Novaneira, or he confirmed things that I intuited. He actually wrote in an era when there was a school of Galician landscape poets, but he refused that designation. He said people of the land never call the land landscape and never call it wilderness either. Those are words designated by those who come, who look in from outside. He calls it land, earth, soil, and there's only one word for all that in Galician, terra. The idea of land in Galician then can't be separated from the idea of earth, from the idea of the earth, and from the big E, earth, the planet. Land itself, where one's footprints are, is always planetary. The footprints are part of the land and lead up into the legs and into the body. There's always a land and human relation. And I always remember Paul Savard telling me about the sky. He said, remember, the sky is not up there. It comes down to the ground and touches us. It comes to the earth and touches us, and it surrounds us. The sky is touching us at every moment. And this is Novaneira's is a different kind of ecology, a different kind of epistemology, which is to say a different formation of language itself at its base, where we situate ourselves and our bodies as sites where knowledge can happen. And this knowledge can happen because we touch the earth. And that's why I call Novaneira an eco-poet avant la lettre, before eco-poetry was even invented. He was born in 1930 and died in 1999, by the way. And that's why lexicon is important too, words, vocabulary, because each word we might use to link us to land and help us communicate also links us to others and is critical. It conveys a view of knowledge. It conveys a worldview. And for that, that's one reason why we have to stop and listen to other people. Otherwise, if we're always talking, as I am now, but as you can see, I'm not going to do all the talking. We're imposing a worldview without even knowing it. We're determining structures when we speak, not just for ourselves, but for other people. And for other people to be able to speak and determine us too, for that relationship to be more balanced, we need to listen. One more point I was going to make about lexicon, about vocabulary. Galician Corellians in Novaneira's day walked everywhere. Until maybe the 60s or the 70s, before they got ATVs and things like that. Because the land there is very steep. The fields are very steep. You can't drive regular tractors or farm machinery on them. And when you walk places, when you walk, 30 odd kilometers a day, you see more than you can in a car or from a horse or a skidoo or a bicycle or a bus or a plane. And when you see more of the land, you have more names for it. And there's more sites and places, there's more features, there's more interrelations that can have names. And because we're kind of fast, us Canadians, compared to Galician Corellians, and our English has lost a lot of particularities. In fact, to get back to the particularities of land in English, you end up looking up Gaelic words and words in such Old English that they're no longer part of our daily capacity to understand language. So I couldn't use those words. I had to invent words at times using the Germanic ability of English to combine nouns and verbs into new words, and the Latin ability to combine roots and prefixes and suffixes. And some of the things, I had to actually go to Galicia, for example, and to the Corel to see, for example, a caborco, and really understand how I could say that in English, because just calling it a gully is not, or a valley or a steep valley does not do a caborco justice. And I think I ended up calling it things like a dark maw, just because it's so narrow and so steep and so deep. If you ever fell into one, you'd never get out of it. Anyways, in writing about mountains, fortunately, I grew up near the Rocky Mountains and hiked a lot and grew up in those mountains more when I was a kid. And so I did have a lot of words for mountain things and was able to respond to what I was seeing in his language. And I'm just going to read some short poems to you now, and we'll see what happens. For about 15 minutes, I'll read. And I'll read some of the Galician too. I don't try and put all of the Galician in the book. As I say, here's the book. It was published by the marvelous Valise Books in Texas, because it's who publish a lot of Latin American Galician and Spanish work in translation in English. A wonderful press. So here's a little 4-line poem. This air is engrossed in something I can't see. The birds, the quiet, the meadows, the uplands gone quiet. Esto aire enfecho, nago que eu não vejo. Os pájaros, os prados, os edos calados. The Galician has this kind of rolling rhythm, and he rhymes as well, but everything rhymes in Galician, and so it doesn't stand out quite so much as when you do it in English. But I did another version of this little poem. That does have a rhyme, having in the process to alter a bit my translation of the words. This air does delect in what I can't detect. Birds, meadows fill the uplands still. And a poem about rain. With face pressed to the pane of the window, I watch threads of water against the shadows of crags. In the threads of water already unseen, the gaze rests again, absorbed in rain. Threads of water warp to the weft of dream threads. I am dreaming. He often in his poems has a line of silence. It's just a space of silence, as you can see right there. Trying to translate that into silence in Canadian is a bit different. He uses a lot of poems where he just jams in words that speak of the place. Chestas floridas e sittima, vertas de chesta piornal, terra probe, sequisa de penedo e erba cha. Flowers, sittima, broom, high fens of broom laburnum, barrens of dry crags and bunch grass. I love it when he just throws those poems out at you. River meadows, freshest, busted out and streaming. On this log, when I came as a child minding cows, I sat and braided belts of reeds. And then the book says, I'm sure I have another translation of this somewhere. River meadows, cascades that roar and trickle. On this log, when as a child I came with the cattle, I sat braiding belts from reeds. He wrote as well about oxen. In wider roads or in flatter fields, people could plow or pull machinery or wagons with oxen. They didn't pull wagons with horses there, as we do here. So he has some poems about oxes. Here's one. Boy burdion de corno broco alignon. Boy marong de bobo foco otayong. Ox bellower, down swept horns at the ready. Ox uncut, bull headed on the rut. You can see I amuse myself tremendously. Mountain outsteps, holm oaks of Torella spook felted in the night. Along the rim of the peak and lip of the hillside, your lopped branches point to kindling. Bent holm oaks at Sido, and they of the Vega do Lago. These holm oaks whose wood makes handles for the sickles that keep them pruned. Meadows of Vega do Chal, of Sido and the Reboleira, where you glimpse the royal road and folk heading home from the fair. I walked down the paths, singing or joying, stopping every now and then to knock off the burrs. Every afternoon, I brought home strings of strawberries and blueberries I'd picked, and I ate every one on arrival. Here's Peñarado, Peñarino, Polonovale, Fontella, Praros do Val da Snella e do Campo do Minho. Sweep of the sweeping falcon past Novelle and Fontella, fens of the Val da Snella and the Campo do Minho. And here's one of about a flax field all fully headed out. Che ligno mais igualigno, non vegna o topo, fosalo nin vegna o torbon de talo. There's no flax field as smooth, no moles nosed blindly through it, no cloudbursts laid it down. So that's and another ox one. In Galician, this one doesn't have the Galician, but I comment here how Galician has rolling sounds and English has striking sounds. And I end up translating the roll with the strike. Ox bellowers from o'er peaks, high, thick-necked, strong-backed, bull-headed, pot-bellied and gaunt-hipped. Ox brawling scrappers, bellowing oxen in the braid song, balls baleful, wallows deep and rasps high. Fonda and Sheba, all along the mountain tops and through the fog. The yaffle laughs, pecks beak into oak. The jay lets out a trill, casts song where it will, and takes aimless flight, seeking another limb that's near about as trim. Cuckoo fills the valley with its song. Cuckoo's just a spring and summer bird in Galicia. Canto cuckoo cala e canta dos castinheiros do val, passa o tempo e non di nada e volta o cuco a cantar. The cuckoo sings, quiets and sings from chestnut groves all down the vale. Time passes and says not a thing, and the cuckoo goes cuckoo again. This is a hot day poem from summer. Sue cherries gleam at Rubial. Wind runs through hay ripe for scything. Even the songless sings. The cicada sings in the hay sings in the scythe. The washwoman fans on the lip of the weir. The water's still, runs, sparkles, mirrors. Shade calls. Already no chirps can be heard from the birdlings so near me, they're sleeping. And this is a poem where he speaks of, he also wrote some of the greatest snow poems of European literature, I'm sure. And myself, as someone who loves snow in winter, I've always had a lot of affection for his snow poems. There's a lot of those silence lines in his snow poems as well. So this poem is a poem he wrote for his children. And one of the things, there's a lot of falling down roofs in it. And I just have to say that that's a very common thing in Galicia because since the 70s especially, Galicia has been very affected by rural depopulation. So the populations leaving those marginal farmlands and going to the city. In the same way, there's been various cycles of that in Canada as well. This poem's called I'm in Compostela as snow comes to the corral. So I'm in the city as snow comes to the mountains. Branca, Ushio, and Arturo, they'll be here in the future. We'll be here in the future to ensure it succeeds the past. And you, Galicia, endure, though your roofs collapse and snow falls into your hearths. Though roof tiles collapse, exposing the attics. In the room where I was born, and even in the bed, there's snow. Snow shuts down the valley. It snows in the Corza Risa. It snows on the outcrops. It snows in the high oaks and in every stand of trees. It snows in the deep wood on every sapling. It snows over rocks and across the holly. It snows in me right before my... It falls, oh powdery snow. Cai a neve polvorinia. Nova Neira also wrote what he called ergograms, or they're visual poems. They're not illustrations of poems, they are the poems. He stood over big pieces of paper on a table with a felt pen, and the poem came out through him and onto the page. And so this is one of them about snow. All the snows raised, all the fog shredded, all the furious moons. And it kind of looks like a snowstorm, which is one reason I like it. I try to create in the book a kind of visual journey to the Corral. And this is a rain poem. And so I wrote it almost as the typeface is grayed out and it's larger, almost as if it is a rainstorm, that we're looking at a page full of rainwater falling. Fits and starts of rain in the shadows, rain down below and high above. The air of dream in a dream, water drips and dribbles. Night enters the uplands. Afternoon goes without even a sigh, taking its leave in a way I'll never known before and won't forget. What colors the high heather? The rugged peaks enter winter. Is it the ranges that rise to the sky? Is it sky that descends? Is it fog or mists in the gazing eye? I know not what watches over land nor what watches over souls. I'm very sure it's right to feel sure. I'm not sure it's right to feel sure. Up there where the gaze knowingly moves, something's sure. The first time the child saw it, he surely knew. Yet stubbornness stubbornly prevails. Whenever I feel this surety, again, I must lose it to find it once more. In the 70s, Moure also wrote several poems that were kind of in manifesto style or litany style. And there's two of them in this book, and one of them is a kind of almost a hymn to Galicia. It's called Litany for Galicia. And I'll read the English version of that. Galicia, I say, they say, Galicia. Galicia, we all say, Galicia. Until even the silent say, Galicia. And they know, we know. Galicia of aches, forced to weep. Galicia of sadness, forced to be sad. Galicia of silence, forced to be silent. Galicia of hunger, forced to emigrate. Galicia blindfolded, forced to be blind. Galicia earplugged, forced to be deaf. Galicia hobbled, forced to hold still. Free to serve, free to serve, free to not be, free to not be, free to die, free to die, free to flee, free to flee. Peasant, Galicia, our Galicia. Mariner, Galicia, our Galicia. Worker, Galicia, our Galicia. Brotherly Galicia, Galicia still living. Gather the earth to you, it's deeply yours. Gather the people to you, they're deeply yours. Gather history to you, it's cloudy, but yours. Gather strength and arise in the fullness of our language, in the living voice that is the speech of our people. Gather strength for the young who arrive in great number, strength for those not yet marked by the clasp of chains, for those who know Galicia can be something greater, for those who know humanity can be something more. It's we who know Galicia can be something greater. Together we know humanity can be something more. And just to, I mean, that's actually a good poem for COVID times, for remembering that we can all be a bit something more. Galician is a language it's spoken only by about 3 million people. It's the root language of modern Portuguese. It's existed in Galicia since the time of the Romans, and the local people with their Celtic accents altered Latin into Galician. It was a language, though, that is colonized and was even forbidden during Franco times, during a dictatorship of over 40 years. It was not very difficult to use it. Moure was one of the first people in the 50s to stand up in a room full of people and speak and to introduce a poet in Galician. And apparently at the time he did that, the Francoist police who were in the audience stood up, I guess, to go and grab him. And everybody in the audience looked around and everybody stood up. So the police sat down again. And he got away with speaking in Galician, but he's always been an ardent defender of Galician, of indigenous languages, and of people everywhere who are affected by accumulative capitalism instead of by communities of speaking and being. This is one of my favorite poems here because it's full of food. So this is a little food trip to Galicia. Trout of the river Loire, honey sweet and bitter to taste, sheep and goat, eggs on fried bread, ash-cured chorizos in twists of parchment, cured ham, ember toasted or boiled whole in the pot, the hoof sticking out its hoof. fresh roe deer or curd cheese, shredded pork rib cutlets, blood crepes, our own gray wheat, and the liquor of strawberries that still have their stems. Chestnuts dry or boiled or roasted or in milk, and a good Quiroga, Bierzo, or Valdeorras wine from renowned cellars that, as well as lifting spirits, keeps rights and rest kindled. So that's a food poem. And then some of these poems intrigue me endlessly. This is a poem. It's actually, you don't know if it's about the rain or about the lady who comes around to pick up the laundry. Or he's talking about the lady who comes to pick up the laundry, but we find out actually that he's just thinking back, and maybe it's the rain. Volta alla brandeira a petarno cristão, sempre a mesma hora, chama em todas as ventanas, gira em cor da casa e volta a chamada. 5 meses morreu minha nai. It's the washerwoman come tapping at the pane. She always calls at this hour, at every window, goes around the house and comes to tap again. It's been months since my mother died. Since his mother would have been the person who dealt with the washerwoman and gave her the laundry. There is no washerwoman or mom. The last poem that I'm going to read from here is actually a I can even find it. It's a ballad. Say it, Erin. That he wrote about an event that happened when he was. Here it is. Battle of the Manuel de Ribadera. He wrote it in ballad form. It's about an event that happened when he was 6 years old during the Civil War in Spain, when some phalangist, fascist troops or militias or self-armed supporters of the right came through and grabbed a musician who lived in his village. Ballad of Manuel de Ribadeira. Over the vastness of the ranges, men climbing at night came for Manuel's cella called Manuel de Ribadeira by those nearby. They tore his parents from his embrace, and it said that they brought him down on his horse along the royal road. It said he promised them a twin-barreled gun and the newborn pup he'd been training, as he couldn't use it in the future anyway. They could chop off a finger and take it as proof to those who'd given orders to kill him. They skirted Savani and Mireos. Few saw them pass, for they all turned their gaze, and on reaching Teixeira, they went even higher. Beside the deep pit, they stopped and dismounted. He spun in the air when the first shot resounded, and then rang a second, a third, and a fourth. They threw him in the grotto without coup de grace, rained pebbles and boulders over his body. The shepherds of livestock saw and heard something, and the one with the sack brought back word. It was the people of Parada who went and got him. They had to knot 2 ropes together. With them tied to his belt, his father went down, lashed him tight with buckles and cord. They pulled Manuel's body up after his father, brought him on foot across the raised mountain, passing through hamlets frozen by fear, marking steps as they bore what went up alive back down on a stretcher, past the church cemetery on to Savani, back to the royal road, and up the people silent, all with the same hush weighed upon them. To Parada they came, where they were awaited. In front of the house all stood in a circle. There I saw it happen as a child of 6. His sister and mother raised a howl of anguish till they collapsed one after another. It said they were 4 who grabbed and killed him, and they died, all of them, in violent anger. They were 4, and their names I won't utter, even though 40 years have gone by. And there's just a note there to talk about this fellow who was a musician. He was 21 years old, and he was murdered by the Phalange on the 16th of October, 1936. What did he do wrong? After a meeting of the previous spring of a group called Republican Action, around election time. He helped bring a wounded man to the hospital, and he was seen at the hospital with this wounded man by the rightists, who apparently actually had shot the guy, which is why he was wounded. The 4 phalangists who killed him were later sent to the front in the Phalangist army, partly because the neighbors in the area all complained about all the evil deeds these 4 characters were doing in the area. And they all died in the war, and one of them was even killed on reporting for duty in the same army, to the same army that Franco was ruling. It was his commanding officer shot him, because when the guy showed up and he heard the guy's name, he recognized him as someone who had been causing a lot of difficulty back home in his neighborhood by killing people, and then he got rid of them himself. Anyways, sometimes now we spend more time naming killers than we do naming the names of people who died, and Nova Negra refuses to name their names even 40 years later. So I'm just going to stop there and see if the people who are the poets who are in the workshop, as you can see, we have Holly Ulrich, Marilyn Bellick, Gary Berwin, Lynn McClory. Your name's not on there, so Melanie Siebert. And when we started to talk, we ended up going for walks before we came to the workshop and bringing words for features of our land to the workshop. And we combined them all and started by writing small poems just using those words. And then everybody went away and revised their poem. And I asked them if they would bring it back and read it today. So I'd like to thank you all for coming and doing that. And maybe, do you want to start, Holly? Oh, you've got to unmute yourself.
Unmute, yes, I can.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much, Erin, for everything. Choke cherries, cranberries, apples to gather, moist maple foliage becoming mulch, scouting perimeters surrounded by rolling hummock, sidewalk along clover, greens, leads downwards to mudslide gully. Creek bed reveals sandstone, quartz, and granite river rocks to admire and hunt for habitual collection.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see, how about Lynn? Trying to ask you to unmute.
Unmute now. Okay. I put a title on mine, Early Autumn Dusk Walk in Toronto. I've been taking dusk walks during the pandemic because not many people are out then. So, and Erin, I want to thank you for yesterday. That was such a rich experience to change from using the mind to think of what I think of things when I walk, rather than being really present and immersed in what's there. Vast difference. So, fish shadow slides under alluvial rocks, river rocks, gravel. Paddle Creek Park, interlocked gravel, gully, boulder, decor. Cranberry, chokeberry foliage, perimeters, rolling hydrangea. Sump roses no longer climb to my olfactory breath. Tall maples, mute gold edges, rustling auburn, folding leaves. Small Quito, fire glow, maple rests in peace on drying soil, clover, and mulch.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Lynn McClory. It's amazing being attentive. Having just translated this book, I also, and having been in Montreal for months and months and months, I've been taking so many walks and learning. I've been learning so many things about the plants and things just in my neighborhood from the birds. Actually, the birds teach me things in strange ways. Thanks again, Lynn.
And you're
And
you.
just moving, let's see now, Gary, do you want to read your poem?
Sure, okay. I'm in Hamilton, Ontario, so my poem is called Escarpment since it runs through the middle of the city, a large cliff. Escarpment, twig shadow in gullied alder scrub, hummock of chokecherry, granite and auburn, the mountain, which isn't a mountain. Maples dapple the mulchy slope, fish shadow, beach boulder, gravel speech sumps around, river curl, alluvial.
Thanks, Gary. Gary did what I did with some of the poems in my book, where I have multiple translations of the same thing, because he has other versions of that poem, I happen to know. Thank you for sharing that one with us, Gary. And then Marilyn
Okay.
and Fernie.
Oh, sorry.
You're okay, you're good.
I'm good. You can hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, you're good to go.
I just have two things, because in your book I came across the elegy for Albert Camus, who I've always been from a young girl entranced with, and he died January 4th. My birthday is January 5th. Elegy for Albert Camus. I sit vigil for you, exposed to the night. Fierceness is news. From one wail of the owl to the next, my question is answered and becomes a question again. I sit vigil until the leaves return. And then I have my little poem from yesterday, which was or 2 days ago, which was such a fascinating thing. So I've moved to Fernie, and I've named this my Elk River Walk because I live in the Elk Valley now, no longer in the Peace Country with Donna. Elk River Walk, cranberry bank perimeters, alder scrub fish shadow, round river rocks, alluvial silk, red fly lines flash. Thank you very much for this. It's just been a wonderful experience. Great.
Well, thanks, Marilyn. That's I liked how people started with our group of words and end up bringing other things into the poem, and yet there's things that we have all across Canada. For example, chokecherries.
I got up this morning, and I'm not a good handwriter and stuff, but I got up and saw my journal this morning, and just that list of words, and thought it was so elegant and beautiful. It really was lovely.
That's good. That's good. And Melanie and Victoria.
Hi there.
Hi, Melanie.
So my poem has a provisional title, Creek, whose original name I don't know, so I tried to research it, arising on the bedrock of Nimkish lands. Black and gold shiver, creeks push, layering in sand and gravel. Alder scrub, some leaves still zapping green. Others, muddied sunsets, slipping into water's varnish. Fish fuel the swiveling fish shadows. Spiderlings electrostatically sail for the blue air heights on their glinting kite strings. Next day, invisibly into smoke.
Here. I think we got your neighbors in there. That's great. Well, that was wonderful. I mean, I think that one of the ways, I've got one more to read from Bernadette Wagner in Regina, Saskatchewan, who couldn't be here, come back for the reading today, but was at the workshop with us. And I'm just going to read her poem because she sent it to me to read. A Wet Year. Mudslide perimeters, granite foundation, gravel, rolling over greens, bridge, round river rocks to beach boulder, folding foliage, maples, mulch buildings into fish-shadowed water. So it's a reflected poem. Bernadette Wagner.
So that was so wonderful, you guys. What really terrific poems and amazing reading, Erin, as well. It's always so thought-provoking what you do, insightful, intelligent.
Well,
This actually, I guess this event concludes Wild Words North, and it's been, you know, obviously a different experience than past festivals, but I was pretty surprised at how it still held lots of energy. And one of the great things is just about all of our events were recorded, as this one is. So our YouTube channel will still hold the discussions and a lot of the readings and performances. So when you leave a in-person festival, you don't, that's it. You don't get to go back and relive them, but you can on our YouTube channel. So yeah, so on behalf of the Peace Liard Regional Arts Council and the board, I just want to thank everyone who attended any of the events and all of today's workshop participants and wonderful moderators like Erin, without which these festivals would not be the success that they are. So I don't know if anyone who is an attendee has any questions, or I'll just maybe have a look. I don't see any in the Q&As, but yeah, so if
there's something there, they could put it in the Q&A or in the chat.
yeah.
But I just want to thank you again, Donna, and for I'm really glad that you've got all the events up on YouTube, because I've had a busy work weekend from 5 in the morning till my brain stops.
Oh.
And so I'm really I'm going to have my festival slightly on a different time zone.
Yeah, well, that's
I hope to come up there. I hope to come up there in the future. I think that Wild Words North is one of the most beautiful festivals in the country. And when we get a chance to actually be in the area, you meet so many local writers and local people, and there's just many rich exchanges and presences and sharings. It's really it's not like the kind of festival where people go, they show up at their reading and then they go to some restaurant with their friends or something and vanish. Everybody kind of hangs out.
Yeah, you do.
So, yeah.
Well, we would love you any time, every year. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
And
Okay,
thanks,
well,
everybody. Thanks.
it's always hard to end these things because yeah, it's not quite the same. But anyway, yeah, thanks so much. I'm going to end the meeting, and yeah, beautiful readings, everybody. And hopefully we stay in touch.
Yeah, stay in touch, everybody. Have a good time with your poems, with your poetry. Bye.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Donna, you're wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Erin.
Okay, see ya.
Okay. Yeah, bye-bye.